Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You are watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and today we are in Canada. My first Canadian guest, and I'm so happy to welcome Lal Balkaran, who lives in Ontario, Canada. And I'm excited to welcome him to my show and also to learn all that's been happening in Toronto, in Ontario, where he lives during this pandemic. Lal, welcome to Conversations with Jennylyn.
Thank you, Jen. I'm originally from Guyana. I have been in Canada since 1987. Okay. And I came here as a chartered accountant qualified from England as well. And I did a Canadian equivalent of the exams. And I also did the CMA from the UK, and I did the equivalent here in Canada. And I am also a Master of Business Administration from the Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Okay.
I'm also certified internal auditor, which is a US-based international organization that specializes in internal control, risk, and governance. So there you have it. I'm qualified in the US, I'm qualified in the UK, I'm qualified in Canada, and I am semi-retired now. I just do projects with big companies, on a short-term basis, and I find time to do the things now that I always wanted to do, like writing, publishing, posting on unique topics on LinkedIn, and music as well, which is a passion of mine. So that's where I am, and that's what brings me here.
Another multi-talented person. So we have a thing or two in common because we are both from Guyana, and right. You met me when I was a child.
That's right. No.
You met me when I was in high school?
That's correct, in 1976, in July 1976.
My goodness. I am so excited to be able to share this time with my fellow Guyanese. But just for my viewer, you are from Guyana, but you speak a lot about England. Did you live in England prior to moving to Canada?
No. In Guyana, which is a former British colony, you could do all the British accounting exams by correspondence. So I first did the Chartered Secretary exam, and then I got exemption from the CMA, first three parts of the CMA in the UK, which is the Institute of Chartered Management Accountants.
Right.
So I qualified while I was working as a senior auditor with a state-owned Guyana Sugar Corporation.
Yeah.
And I first qualified in 1978 with the Chartered Secretary's designation. And then 3 years after, I got my UK CMA while at Gaisuco. And I was made an executive management accountant because of that. And I was one of only 3 candidates in the entire Caribbean that passed the entire exam, studying on your own.
Congratulations. You're clearly a smart man.
Well, the thing is, when you come, my father, I came from a humble background. My father was a cane cutter on the sugar estate. So growing up poor, you have to make use of all the resources you have available. I couldn't afford going to England, and my father couldn't afford sending me to England. So I had to use my money, buy the books in Guyana, buy the syllabus, study on your own, and I was always hell-bent on getting a designation as a qualified accountant. And so I did.
So proud of you, so Guyanese of you too. We are we're very innovative nation of people, and lots of innovation has come out of Guyana, much like other countries in the world. But I'm very proud of all that you have done, and you can share with us how, what you've been doing in Canada since you moved there. You said you moved in
1987, that's correct.
Yes. Yep. So what have you been doing in Canada since you moved there?
Well, I've been working with some big organizations here as a senior auditor. I worked with 2 of the Big Four. Now, the Big Four are the Big Four accounting firms in the world. They're E&Y, which is Ernst & Young, KPMG, PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Deloitte. So those are the big 4 accounting firms around the world. And I worked with 2 of them, E&Y and KPMG over the years.
Okay.
In addition to some large corporations, like I work with AT&T Canada. There used to be an AT&T Canada here. I spent 12 years here almost. And some other corporations as in their internal audit function. And I was the president of the Institute of Internal Auditors here in Toronto, which is quite a prestigious position to hold.
Yes, very impressive.
Actually, I was the first colored person to hold that position.
The first what person?
Colored.
Isn't that funny that we make reference to that? You're the first colored person.
That's right. Well, I mean, it's reality, right? So
I know. It is.
So that was a piece of history I created here when I became president in 2002. And I held the presidency for 2 years, 2002 and 2003. I am now an honorary member of that institute, which has over 3,000 members here in Toronto. It's one of the largest chapters outside of the US.
Oh, okay.
So, and I've been writing and publishing as well. You know, I've written 9 reference books on business, another 5 on my native Guyana. And actually one of the books on Guyana, which is called the Encyclopedia of Guyanese Amerindians, was used. I was invited by the American Museum of Natural History in New York back in 2003 to introduce it to them. So
wow.
They could not believe that I was an auditor doing something like this. But I explained that my first job when I left high school in 1970 was teaching in the Rupuruni, which is the savannas bordering Brazil. And I spent 5 years there. And I traveled to the Northwest as well. I traveled to a lot of Amerindian communities throughout Guyana. And I used to keep notes and artifacts and collect souvenirs, handicrafts and whatnot.
Do you have any of that with you now?
I still, if you can, you know, somewhere in the background here, if I lift the camera, you can see it in my library. So it's at the top of my library there.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I collect rocks as well. But I compiled that encyclopedia with the help of the Jesuit missions in the UK. And I got some information from the Smithsonian Institution and from National Geographic as well. And I threw it out there, and I got it reviewed by some well-known professors of anthropology at universities, and introduced it to the world, and it became a unique reference on the first peoples of Guyana, put it that way.
That's amazing. I'm so impressed. Have you gone back and done anything for the country of Guyana?
Oh yes, I go there often. I established an Institute of Internal Auditors in Guyana.
You did?
I did 20 years ago. So this month marked 20 years for that institute. And for the first time, they have professional qualified people in risk governance and internal audit, you know. And I feel proud to have done that. I always...
Proud too of you. Thank you for giving back to the country.
Yep. And every now and then I always send donations to the library, like books and other items of interest to the poorest of the poor, the Amerindians, through the hostel.
So as a Guyanese who is now on the outside,
right?
When you look back at Guyana, what would you say? How would you describe the situation there now? Do you feel like the country has grown, or do you feel like it's still somewhat the way you left it?
Well, Guyana has been in a mess, you know, it's a sad situation because only in 1992, we have had our first free and fair election since independence of 1966. And 1992.
And why do you think that was fair?
It was free and fair because it was brokered by the Carter Center of the US.
Okay.
Prior to that, we had 30 years of, you know, rigged election, you know, and that was because of the Cold War was in full swing. Mm-hmm. But with the end of the Cold War now, the US had no interest in propping up a dictatorship, which they used to. So they ushered in the first free and fair election in 1992. And we have had 23 years of growth. People were free. Things were moving up. And then sadly, I mean, look at the impasse that we have now. We have had the first, election that was held March the 2nd, and today is April 23rd. The results are not yet known. The fraud was committed in the eyes of the entire world. And the fraudsters do not intend to give up easily. So it's a sad situation. And the thing is, you cannot have growth without democracy. And I'm hoping it ends peacefully and we can get back to the business of, developing the country.
So, they found the largest oil reservoir in Guyana 2 years ago?
That's correct, yep. Mm.
And I was so excited when I heard that. When I heard that, I thought finally the country can move forward and they will have, some of their own resources now to grow. And it seems like it's been nothing but disaster.
Well, that's true. And look at the price of oil now. The price of oil, I mean, is in just about under $20 a barrel. So, I mean, we won't see a windfall because of the price of oil. And, sadly, because of the Covid-19, there's a glut of oil on the market now. So the big oil find will not mean anything economically or wouldn't be financially sound at this time for the country.
Well, I remember where I grew up in Guyana. I was on the border of Guyana and Venezuela. And I grew up being told by my father, like every 6 months or something, you have to go to bed early. The Venezuelans are coming to invade tonight.
Right.
Did you remember that while we were growing up there, that Venezuela was always threatening to take over the country? And it's the reason why we sat on all of our resources.
Well, that's right, yeah.
And now that Venezuela's economy is crippled, we have a chance to grow ours and to start, getting something in return for all the resources that we've sat on. And now we have this. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see and hope that they can sort out the political situation and appoint a government and move the country forward, because they're sitting in hold now, like you said, for
that's right.
so months.
Well, it's sad because Guyana has so much resources in terms of human resources and natural resources. And over 56% of the population of Guyanese live outside of Guyana, all over the world, And it's sad, it has come to this. And until they can solve the political dilemma in Guyana, we cannot move forward.
Right. Well, the sad thing is politics always seems to get in the way. I think if we hopped around the world and interviewed all the people in every country, I think that at least 80% of the people you meet will have a similar story about their political situation.
True, right? But we have been independent in 1966. It's time we move on. We're geographically, we're part of South America, but culturally and historically, we're part of the Caribbean. And we should have been ahead of many countries in the Caribbean. Instead, Trinidad is ahead of us, Barbados is ahead of us, Jamaica is ahead of us. And, all those countries could fit in the Essequibo River.
Right.
So we could absorb them all, we could feed the entire Caribbean, but it takes the will of a certain leadership to go that route, right? And sadly, we don't have that now.
Yeah, that's true. But also we had the threat of Venezuela if we try to do anything with the resources. Also, I feel like that played a part in keeping us in the holding, cell that we've been in for all these years.
That's right.
But I don't want to make our entire interview about Guyana and its history, although it's fascinating. And as a Guyanese, I'm very proud to share it with whomever watches my show.
Right.
But my focus for this particular series of interviews is COVID-19.
Right.
So I'm excited to hear from you, since I've never spoken with anyone in Canada about the situation in Canada, specifically where you live, because I would imagine that you can't really speak for the entire country.
Right.
Tell us about the area where you live and your life personally. How have you been affected by COVID-19?
Well, I live just outside of the city of Toronto, which is a suburb. It's called Scarborough. It's just half an hour by train to go downtown. And we are on lockdown as well. I mean, I'm working from home. My wife is working from home as well. There's social distancing. have to conform to. So it's a change in lifestyle. It change. We only communicate by phone and by email and LinkedIn and Facebook with family members and friends. And it's such a dramatic change because up to January and February and early March, we were happy-go-lucky as if nothing will happen. And then all of a sudden, your whole lifestyle, work ethics have changed. You have to work from home, and you go out once a week to do your groceries. How can you live like that? It's still cold up here. It's, so it's been a change in mindset and a change in outlook. I have 2 grown children, a boy and a girl. My son lives downtown Toronto. My daughter lives not far from here, but we haven't seen each other since February.
Wow.
And, usually they come on weekends to visit us. We only can see each other through FaceTime.
Is your wife Guyanese?
Yeah, she's Guyanese. She's from Berbice, and she works with a big bank here, and she's working upstairs right now, as most employees will to be working from home.
Well, I know that there's so many lessons I have learned from this, but this interview is not about me. It's about you.
Right.
So what is the overwhelming lesson that you have learned from this experience?
I think the overwhelming lesson I've learned is that you can do so much when you're at home. Right. You can go, the internet is one huge library at your fingertips. You can research a topic of your interest. You can, you can find a time of peace and tranquility to do some meditation. And I'm a great fan of yoga. I do yoga every day for 45 minutes. And I'm a great fan of physical exercise as well. I do that every day as well, except Sunday. And I also find it time to go through I'm a collector of ancient coins, as well as stamps and rocks. So I'm putting them in a chronological sequence, cataloging them, going through all my old negatives of pictures I've taken all over Guyana, and when I was traveling around Europe as well as North America during my audit days. So there's so much you can do at home, and I just want to be productive.
Right.
And so when the crisis is over, I'm recharged.
And not only that, you have something to show for the time you spent locked in.
Right.
So can you tell us, the numbers in Toronto, in Canada? What are the numbers, the corona numbers, in terms of contaminated cases that have been tested positive and people who've died to date? Do you know?
I don't keep track of those numbers, but they're not as large as the US, I can say.
Okay.
And people are heeding the social distancing and staying at home. So that's helping us. And a lot of people are wearing masks, although it's not mandatory here as well as yet. So we're observing it, but the numbers are not as large as the US or as Italy or France or Spain.
So are you happy with the way your government has handled it?
Yes, very much so. Yep, we have an update every couple of hours on the TV, by our prime minister, which is the equivalent of your president, So everybody is chipping in and they're heeding the advice, But like all businesses are suffering, right? Some small businesses may go belly up when this crisis is over. They cannot afford to lose revenue.
Well, isn't your government helping those businesses? Do they have programs
True.
in place for small businesses, and are they helping people who've lost their jobs financially? What programs do they have in place for those? Well,
yeah, there's the government is helping them. We have programs similar to yours, but the thing is that money will run out, right? It wouldn't be there forever, and that's hoping that this virus, will go on till, let's say, around June, and then the restrictions will start to be lifted.
When did your quarantine orders occur? When did they tell you all that you had to stay in and quarantine?
Around the middle of March.
Middle of March. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And then this will go until the end of May or the first week in June, and then slowly they will start to lift the restrictions depending on the curves and the models that they have. So
So many people around where I live and different people I've communicated with or heard on the news are saying that they don't agree that we need this lockdown. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, when you look at Italy had said if they had locked down early on, they wouldn't have had so many deaths.
Mhm.
So we're learning from the experience of Italy,
Yeah.
which was, the largest outside of China at the time, So I think we should go with the scientific data
Mhm.
and the models that are coming from the world of science and just heed that advice. Let's stay locked down until this crisis is over.
So from where you live and in your immediate neighborhood, have you noticed that people are compliant?
Oh yes, I mean, I look out through my window. I don't see a soul on the street. Just occasionally someone walking their pets. I don't see anyone jogging or anyone, taking a leisurely walk. So when you go out on the road to do the groceries, the roads are almost empty. So people are hitting, and then you have to line up to get to the grocery store. You go in there, they take 5 people at a time, and people are maintaining their distance. So people are, following the rules.
I love how the grocery store that I go to a few.
Right.
There's an Indian grocery store not far from my house where I can get some of the spices we use in Guyana that I wouldn't find in some of the regular stores. And it doesn't matter where I go, they have the social distances lined up. They have marked it so people have no choice but to keep that distance.
Right.
And I think it's great, but are they doing that, or you have to imagine the distance?
No, they're doing that. There are markers on the ground to keep your distance 6 feet apart, right? And you have to, just observe that. I mean, nobody's there to enforce it, but you get, others fall in line, so you're forced to fall in line as well.
Some people are saying that we may run into a food shortage because of the length of time that we may have to be quarantined. Right. Are you worried about that? You seeing any food shortages where you are when you go to the store?
No, I don't see that. I mean, I think the supply chain around the world is intact, and food is essential. We have to survive on that. We eat to live. So I don't see any remarkable shortages of many fruits or vegetables or even canned items. The things that we use, weekly are still in there, but the prices are going up slowly.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, because I would imagine it's going to require more work to get the food to us now, since they have limited resources in terms of manpower. Now, do you have the almighty toilet paper shortage too?
No, we don't have that. No.
You're the first person, and I've interviewed people around the world. It's been a while I've been doing this. And in every country, they've had the same reaction to the toilet paper. Right. So I'm happy to hear Canadians didn't have the complex that we all seem to have that's created the shortage. And I'm trying to understand this whole thing with hoarding toilet paper, and I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, nope. Everything is, all the supermarkets, all the grocery stores have ample supplies.
How about masks and gloves, and are those still on the shelves in the stores where you are?
No, I don't see those on the shelf. No.
Oh, okay, so you guys are out of those.
That's right. Yeah.
Is this the first time your wife and you have had to be on lockdown for as long as you have?
That's right. That's correct. Yeah.
What is that like?
Well, we have been married for over 40 years now.
Oh,
so it's not a problem for us. She's upstairs and I'm in the basement. We keep our space apart, right? And it's not an issue. I know some spouses are complaining they're not accustomed to that. And it's having a psychological impact on them. Mm-hmm. But you got to bite the bullet and just, live with your better half.
Yes. So you feel the lesson you've learned is you can get a lot more done from home.
That's correct.
Were you someone who traveled a lot?
I used to, but now I'm slowed down. I try to keep projects right in Toronto that I'm doing.
Yes.
But up to 5 years ago, I used to travel extensively.
And do you feel that this crisis is going to change the way you do business and live your life?
I think so, because I find out that you have to maximize the use of technology now in delivering, projects to potential clients. So we never used to use technology in the past to do conference calls, meetings, reports, but now you'll be forced to do that. You'll be less commuting, which is good. You can stay at home and find time to do the things you always wanted to do, and do work for the corporate execs at the same time. So,
what would you like to share with my viewers as someone who has, been in the financial world for a long time and now looking at everybody's fare as their economy? Because this pandemic is
right.
taking a toll on everyone's bank book.
Right. Well,
Corporations as well as families.
Well, the thing is, you always take things for granted, but this pandemic has forced people to manage your finances carefully, right? Coming out of this will be to go back to the drawing board and make sure you save for a rainy day, and you distinguish your needs from your wants, and you manage your finances much more prudently. The other thing is that you take for granted the people who are close to you, like your kids, your grandkids, your spouses, right?
Yeah.
Now you're forced to be with them for 7/24, right? Now you know their interests, their likes, their dislikes, their values, and you get to know them better.
Mm-hmm.
So it builds a stronger relationship and a stronger bond as well.
Or not.
Or not. That's right. That's right. Yep. No, I see we have a TV channel here, and I see a lot of spouses are complaining,
mm-hmm.
and it's affecting them mentally. I just went into the beer store to buy some beers, and the guys were complaining in the beer store. They're not accustomed to this life of staying home with their children and their spouses for extended hours. So it's an experience that they have to live with, and they have to manage after this crisis is over.
Are you aware of how the educational department is catering the families now whose children have to do or practice distance learning?
Yeah, that's right.
How that's working? How is that working in Canada?
Well, no, the government is encouraging online learning, right? Maximizing the use of internet and making sure that kids have access to the internet by, make sure they have their tablets and their laptops and whatnot, right? So there's a push for that because you can't go to the classroom now.
The thing that I've noticed is how humbling this experience is, because there's so many people that I know that it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, they were not affected.
Right, that's correct.
Now everybody is affected.
Right.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you? How does that make you feel? And what do you think when you think of all these people who have so much power? At least they think they do, and they've always acted like they did. And here comes this invisible thing.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
But it's having an impact on every human.
That's right.
How does that make you feel? And what thoughts come to mind when you think about that whole notion?
Well, it humbles you. For instance, this invisible virus has leveled the playing field for everyone, regardless of your position in society, regardless of your wealth, regardless of borders, regardless of race or color, whatever it is. Right. So it has reminded us that there's a higher power that looks over all of us. And the ultimate power is not humans, but a higher power who controls everything. And by the click of a button, we can become extinct. What I was stunned when I was looking at a program last night on TV showing these empty cities like Rio de Janeiro, Venice. I just was there in September last year. Trafalgar Square in London, England. The Eiffel Tower in Paris. Those are empty places now. Times Square in New York is virtually empty.
San Francisco as well. Nobody on the street.
So it's good for the earth because the air is cleaner now to breathe, right? There's less pollution. And it is a testimony of what the earth will look like when humans become extinct.
Well, can I tell you what I've learned? I have learned that especially those people who think they're invincible and they're bigger than life,
Right.
that you're not.
You're not. That's
None of
correct.
us are. We are just all here for a journey, for a time, and any moment we can be gone. And even though most of us never stopped to think about it until we were faced with our mortality, or unless it just happened, we just went along with it thinking, this cannot happen to me.
Oh, well, it can. I mean, look at the dinosaurs. They've become extinct, and many species of life in the past become extinct. Humans are not exempted from that. You know.
And I've met many people who told me they don't believe in God because they can't see him. And how do they know he's there? Well, guess what? We can't see this virus.
That's right. But we believe in it.
All hiding out from him. I have not met or heard of anyone who's out there going, come here, virus. Just come. I'll take you on. I'm not afraid of you. I haven't done that. So what I'm learning, I think I already knew, but what I'm being reminded of is we only have so much power.
Right.
That's only correct. That much. But then there is a higher power to which we have to surrender. That's and correct. Which we need to be conscious of.
That's right. Right. That's right.
So what are you going to change at the end of this? What are you going to do differently than you did before?
I would, the things I will do differently is the way I relate to my clients and the way I approach projects that clients give me to do, which will be quite different because now there's a different approach using the internet and using technology to get quicker and much more reliable and quality deliverables, rather than go and deal with people on a face-to-face basis, which you don't have to do now, you know. So it will be a less interface with physical clients and more like we're doing now through the internet.
Because many are saying that a lot is going to change after this.
That's correct, right?
And so maybe this is a wake-up call in more ways than one, and maybe it's nature is forcing us to change some things, to do them differently. And if you don't travel as much, you're sparing the air.
That's correct, right?
I feel like when you have a dirty atmosphere or a dirty environment, it promotes the bacteria.
That's correct.
It's an environment for them to grow. So if we're keeping a cleaner earth and a cleaner atmosphere, then we all stand to benefit from it.
That's correct, yep.
So you write a lot of books.
Right.
Is there a book on the horizon that's going to speak about your Corona experience?
No, that's not my domain. I just had one came out last year, which was published in New York. It was called The Rise of Accounting, Auditing, and Finance. That's my domain, you know.
Okay, so you don't write any sort of biographies or anything like that?
No, I don't venture into that.
They're all factual.
That's correct, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, my stuff is more reference. What's that?
Where do you sell your books?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
They're all on Amazon. But I go to reputable, I have books published by Wiley as well as LexisNexis. Reputable, the big name publishers do my work.
Which was your top selling book, and why do you think it was your top seller?
Well, the one was the Encyclopedia of the Guyanese Aborigines. That was a big seller.
Where did it sell a lot? Here or in Guyana?
No, around the world actually.
Oh, really? I need to look for it.
That's right, because you always find books on the North American Indians, but not on South American Indians. So this filled the gap. It filled a void.
Could you say the name again so that anybody watching this show who might be curious could go find it?
Encyclopedia of the Guyanese Aborigines.
Well, thank you so much. As always, when I meet a fascinating person and we are having an inspiring discussion, the time just zips by. And so we're almost out of time, but before I wrap, is there anything I haven't asked you that you feel you should leave with my viewers?
Nope, you've asked me all the right questions and I give you all the right answers. I'm pleased with the interview.
I am so happy to hear that. And I must tell you, I'm always proud of people who do well and who take time to do things to help and inspire others. And clearly you've been doing that. And
Thanks a lot.
This morning I was getting ready for this interview and I was thinking how many people have so many ideas and things that they're being prompted to do, but they just don't believe it will succeed, and so they don't try.
That's correct.
So
Yeah.
my thing is, what I admire in someone like you is when you got the desire or the urge to do it, you did it. So if you don't do it, you can't tell if you're going to fail.
That's
and
right.
It's not about failing, but oftentimes you will succeed instead of fail.
That's right.
Instead of failure, you'll have success instead of failure.
That's
So
correct.
I thank you so much. This means so much to me to have my fellow Guyanese spend these 30 minutes inspiring me and my viewers. And I will be in touch with you. And I thank you so much. Stay safe and corona-free.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. When a conversation is all you need to be inspired, like this one. Thanks again, and I'll be in touch.